Prayer is a communication of the soul with God. It is a fullness of being that does not want to remain enclosed in itself, but rather to share itself with others, to give itself to them, and make them happy. Prayer is the highest achievement of which the human spirit is capable. I'm Father John Sullivan. Over the years, I've grown an appreciation for Edith Stein, Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, and I'm just very happy to share with you sort of an overview of her importance for both the Church and for Carmel. This saint, who is known as Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, or perhaps better known as Edith Stein, displays, striking personality traits all through her life. It began in 1891 and ended in the Auschwitz death camp in 1942. Just think, for instance, that the recently comprised critical edition of her works in the original German reached 28 volumes. Among all the deep thoughts that she communicated in her writings there, I like to recall a good one-liner from the autobiographical book that she put together called Life in a Jewish Family. It shows her saying to herself, at about the time she was 19 years of age, "We are in this world to serve humanity." To appreciate her more easily in the wide range of her contributions, it would be good if we just see her go through three periods in her life. The first phase, I think we can call as a pre-conversion journey. She was born Jewish into an observant Jewish family in the bustling city of Breslau, which is part of Prussia. In those days, it belonged to Germany, therefore Prussia. But now, since World War II, it's in Poland, and the city is called Wrocław. She was Jewish, I say, until the age of 31, when she received baptism in a Catholic church in another part of Germany. Before that happened, though, before she reached her 31st year, she passed her doctoral exam on August the 6th, 1916, and received the mark of summa cum laude, the highest possible honors. On her way to that distinction, she always proved herself to be an intense and dedicated student, even with the anxieties of passing many academic tests. This didn't prevent her, though, from setting up a suspension to her thesis drafting during World War I. That came about when she was still young. The topic of the thesis was empathy. And she volunteered to help the German Red Cross as what we would call today a LPN, or licensed practical nurse, in a wartime contagious disease hospital. As an echo, I would say, to her motto of "We are in this world to serve humanity," with deep gratitude for her status as a doctoral candidate, she didn't hesitate to head for a 5.5-month nursing stint because of the following realization that she captured in her autobiography when the war broke out. Let me read that for you. "Though feverishly tense, I faced the future with great clarity and determination. I have no private life anymore, I told myself. All my energy must be devoted to this great happening. Only when the war is over, if I'm still alive then, will I be permitted to think of my private affairs once more." Her doctoral exam, so she finished the nursing and then resumed her studies, the writing of her thesis, and her doctoral exam took place, as I said earlier, on August the 6th, 1916. By the next year, she was able to publish 3 chapters of her thesis in a book called On the Problem of Empathy. Well, her work on empathy so pleased her thesis director, who was also the acclaimed philosopher Edmund Husserl, that he appointed her his assistant at the University of Freiburg. Spiritually, though, at this point in her life, she was undergoing a change. Contacts with other students of Husserl who had converted from Judaism to Christianity were influencing her thinking and her yearnings for more meaning from life. Eventually, she asked for baptism from the Catholic Church after gradually, that's the word she uses, gradually, there were many influences and took time to come to the realization she wanted to be baptized. The most determinant push, of course, among those influences that helped her to leave an atheistic attitude and embrace the faith came from St. Teresa of Avila. She read the saint's autobiography and came away convinced that this is the truth. Now, in regard to this discovery that she made when reading the life of Teresa, sometimes commentators like to point out that she read the book very avidly and remained thunderstruck by Teresa's volume. True. But they miss, though, the fact that in the final chapter of Teresa's autobiography, she speaks of a vision that she had of Christ the truth. Here was what Stein had been heading toward, hoping for, a sapiential truth applicable to her life's desires, and like much of her philosophical pursuits up to that time, a personalist truth that she saw in that person who reassured her that he was the way, the truth, and the life. So we reached the second phase in her life. It opened after she was received into the church on the first day of the year in 1922, New Year's Day. Bearing up under strong opposition from her family, she chose a professional placement that might seem surprising. She had no success in getting a university teaching position because women were not yet allowed onto university faculties. So a Catholic contact of hers, actually her spiritual director, Canon Schwint of the Speyer Cathedral, suggested that she take a teaching job at the St. Magdalena's Middle School and Teachers Training Institute in the city of Speyer. She would teach German and literature and share in the counseling work provided for the young women. This was yet another instance for her to apply her original personal calling of being in this world to serve humanity. She indicated as much in a letter that she wrote to one of her colleagues at St. Magdalena's. Quote her, "The most important thing is that the teachers should really have Christ's Spirit in themselves and really embody it in their lives. But it is also their duty to know the life into which the children are going. Otherwise, there is a great danger that the girls will say to themselves, 'The sisters have no idea of what the world is like. They couldn't prepare us for the problems which we now have to solve.' And then the whole thing will be thrown overboard as useless. You have the personal advantage that you did not enter too early and were in the youth movement. This means that approaches are open to you which others miss. But also, you must keep your feelings ever open. The younger generation of today cannot understand us anymore, but we must try to understand them, and then perhaps we shall be able to help them a little." Her altruistic attitude could not be more evident. She would include formative consultations beyond the series of lectures that she would develop and deliver. Now, while she was at St. Magdalena's, which took place between 1923 and 1931, Edith did much scholarly work to uncover the philosophical thought of St. Thomas Aquinas. She used her knowledge of Latin to translate his volumes of disputed questions on truth. This interest in the intellectual leader of Catholic thought won for her, though, the interest of Catholic organizations. They heard about it. So they invited her to give public lectures, and these called her outside of Germany to the other German-speaking countries of Austria and Switzerland. She also was the only woman to attend a dialogue between Thomas and phenomenological thinkers in the year 1932 at a suburb near Paris. At this time, too, she developed her thinking on women and appeared on the radio on April 1st, 1932, at a studio in Munich on the Woman's Hour. She gave an address titled Questions About the Maternal Art of Rearing Children. Near the time that she would enter Carmel, she wrote and had hand-delivered to Pope Pius XI a letter requesting some statement in defense of her people, the Jews, in Germany, with also predictable wider consequences for the Catholic Church. Edith's concern in her letter about the Church's moral authority comes across as a further instance of her desire to serve humanity and not just the Jewish-related component of it. This puts us in a third phase now. She was excluded from teaching at Münster's German Institute of Scientific Pedagogy or Education in the spring of 1933 by the Nazi policy of depriving all Jews in Germany of any professional employment. As the saying goes, though, one door closes, another one will open. Or, as she wrote in her voluminous study, Finite and Eternal Being, an attempt to ascend to the meaning of being, what did not lie in my plans lay in God's plans. By Vesper time, on the eve of the feast of Saint Teresa, on October 14th, 1933, she entered the Discalced Carmelite Monastery in Cologne. She felt at home, and by 1935, she professed simple vows. This was all the more significant a step ahead in her pursuit of the Carmelite ideal. She also enriched our appreciation for many Carmelite themes and devotions by penning on the history and spirit of Carmel, also Love for Love, the life and works of Saint Teresa of Jesus, with this appealing personal definition of prayer. Prayer is a communication of the soul with God. God is love, and love is goodness, giving itself away. Prayer is the highest achievement of which the human spirit is capable. Aside from writing about prayer and making it sound so beautiful, she gave touching witness to it on the train trip to Auschwitz during the last week of her life. In the midst of all the confusion and terror of travel through several transit camps as a prisoner, she was given the chance to send a brief note home to her monastery of exile in the Limburg province of the Netherlands, and she wrote this: "Konnte bisher herrlich beten. I have been able to pray so far marvelously well." Can you imagine concentration camps and she's still praying marvelously well? And Mr. Markham, that was his name, he wrote after World War II this: "It was Edith Stein's complete calm and self-possession that marked her out from the rest of the prisoners. Also, a Dutch camp official who spoke with her in Westerbork camp later testified about her that, "I knew here is someone truly great. For a couple of days, she lived in that hellhole, walking, talking, and praying like a saint." And she really was one. That is the only fitting way to describe this middle-aged woman who struck everyone as so young, who was so whole and honest and genuine. Then I saw her go off to the train with her sister Rosa, praying as she went, and smiling the smile of unbroken resolve that accompanied her to Auschwitz. Unbroken resolve. That is what Teresa Benedicta of the Cross showed throughout her life. Resolve based on a true sense of resilient hope that the providential God would see her through life's difficulties and disappointments. This makes her a Carmelite saint, well suited to act as helpmate to us all in the troubled times that we face in our contemporary world.